Welcome, heathens and witches, to the Horn and Cauldron podcast. I am Jon Norgrove.
And I am Julie Norgrove.
There you go. And, so we're back at it again. Back at the Krispy Kremes, whatever the saying is.
I have no idea what saying you're talking about.
I don't know what saying I'm talking about either. Either way, welcome, y'all. Today we are talking about Thor. So this is our, first Thor talk. Trust me, there will be many more. Thor has a great many tales to tell.
Second of our deity deep dives.
Yeah.
I did not plan that triple D masterpiece, but I definitely like that now.
There you go. Alliteration.
It's fun.
Team. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and do all that kind of stuff. If you're listening to us on whatever your podcasting platform of choice is, then please subscribe. These come out every other week. Plus or minus a day or so, depending on really whether our real lives and real ass jobs interfere with this.
And sometimes they do.
That's very true. And speaking of real ass jobs, if you would like to support us doing more creative and or witchy things like this, hit us up on Patreon. It takes me about a week, but every one of the podcasts that we have, starting about 3 back, I have a Book of Shadows page for. So that'll give you notes and information about our topic of choice, as well as a second page, which is a spells page. This also includes the complete list of correspondences, something that we do not go over entirely on the podcast, primarily because I don't know that we need to be talking for 2 hours. Although you never know what the future holds. But so yeah, if you'd like to support us in more cool endeavors, creative endeavors like this, as well as would like some pretty rad Book of Shadows pages,
and
as well
access
as
to the Discord where you can ask us any questions.
Witchy
and
Discord.
Just chat with us.
We have chats. Sometimes our chats are entirely in GIFs, and no actual words have been said. So it's
the right
fun
way to do it.
But and we also do fun cell phone wallpapers with elements that I'm using for the Book of Shadows pages for literally no reason. I just think it's super fun. So hit us up on Patreon and support us there and do all that kind of stuff. And we're just gonna get right into it. Whom's the fuck is Thor?
Says the guy wearing the Mjolnir necklace.
And covered in Viking tattoos. I know who Thor is. Listen, that is why I'm on this side of the thing, not on the other side. Also, we're not flipping experts here. We're just some jackasses who been studying this stuff for like a long time. If we don't tell the story or the thing that you think is more or less important, or like if we mispronounce a thing, my favorite is being corrected on how to pronounce a thing. It doesn't really matter. I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong regardless. But correct us down below. Let us know what you think about any of that shit.
Especially with the pronunciation of things. I do my best.
If you listen to us regularly, you remember Tuahadadanen as a word that Julie can't say. So.
I do my best to try and say things, but it's not always as easy as it seems.
Yeah.
So let's just get into it, shall we? So Thor is a popular and prominent god from the Norse Pantheon, and he's become even more popular in the last few decades, largely thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as a revival of paganism and heathenry, but that's a bit more recent. Historically, Thor has been portrayed as having red hair and a red beard. And actually, it wasn't until the 1960s when Jack Kirby started writing Thor, although it wasn't originally called Thor, it was called something else. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. It is when he described Thor as being blonde.
Stop. Norwegian Hammer Time. That's what the name of the comic book was. It also perfectly interrupted what she was talking about, guys. That's the kind of comedy you don't pay for. I'm sorry, it was just
wow. That was something. I think it's like Stories of Asgard or something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until Jack Kirby started writing this book that he described Thor as a blonde. In my mind, it's like he wanted Thor to be red, but he ended up being a blonde because of the inking going wrong, and he just decided to leave it. Basically, the reason why the Hulk is green.
No, it's probably not what that is.
Probably not that.
No, it's probably just because He didn't want to write for redheads or whatever.
Or
weird psycho
something.
nonsense.
It may have been that he looked too similar to a different character who was a redhead, especially because back then you had very limited colors in comic books, so there wasn't a whole lot to go off of.
I do want Chris Hemsworth with a red beard and red hair in a Thor movie. That would be phenomenal. Maybe like in Elseworld.
Or like maybe
Thor.
his evil twin.
Something, yeah. Well, if he has an evil twin,
Earth.
he has to have like a slightly more evil haircut, facial cut.
Yeah, that's
the rules. If you're a guy and you have an evil twin, that evil twin just has a more menacing, but also slightly more badass beard system.
That is true. That is super true. That's
evil.
the way that works.
You get a club card to evil, and it's to a barber shop. Get you all lined up.
You get like an evil.
You just get like lined up at the evil barber shop,
and you get like 15% off of each cut.
25% off leather jackets. That kind of stuff. Yeah. What do you want? Some menacing-looking rocks and statuaries for your garden? Come to our menacing-looking rock and statuary depot. How all evil places kind of vaguely look the same.
Yeah, it's like that subreddit, Evil Buildings.
Yeah, I love it's exactly like that subreddit.
It's so much fun.
What you got? You got a tall building? What do you got? Like a destitution beneath it? What do you got?
Like a creepy building?
What do you got? Like some fog or something? That's right there. That's the front page.
Yeah,
front page r/evil buildings. It's not important. We're totally off subject already. Keep going.
Evil buildings don't exist in Asgard, and that's the city that Thor is a defender of. He is also the protector of Midgard, which is Earth, out of the 9 realms, and he is the god of lightning, of thunderstorms, and just like sort of storms in general, agriculture, sacred groves of trees, and strength and protecting humans. He's also a god of fertility, and he is a god of hallowing things. So hallowing is a word that I feel like we just don't use enough in our modern times, and going through the research
like halfway between
episode,
hollow and yell. It's where you hollow something out and then yell into it. It's a didgeridoo.
No, that's not it. There's no tiny screams. So hallowing is a word that came up again and again and again and again when I was doing the research for this particular episode of the podcast. And I knew what the word meant, but, as like a modern American, you don't really use that, other than talking about Halloween or something like that, like All Hallows Eve. So for those of you that don't know, hallowing is really just the process of making something sacred or holy. Essentially, you're consecrating it. So I'm going to keep using the word hallowing because it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. And in addition to that, he's also the patron god and namesake of Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, but
Thursday. Yeah. So in the Norse pantheon, there are a few different types of beings. There's Aesir and there's Vanir, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones. And the Aesir... I'm just
circling past a bunch of stuff. Don't worry, guys. We'll get to it. We'll talk about
mostly about Thor today, not an overview of the Norse
podcast
pantheon.
just on elves and dwarves.
We'll probably do a
just
basic on the
words.
pantheons. Yeah,
I'm not even talking about the peoples. Just the words. Yeah.
So Thor is an Aesir, and what's the difference between the Aesir and the Vanir?
You're putting me on the spot, huh?
I am putting you on the spot.
So. I feel like the easiest way, I remember reading somebody described it this way one time, and it's kind of always stuck with me. It's like the Aesir, and I might be backwards on which one is which, by the by. But if I remember correctly, the Aesir are the gods of concepts, and the Vanir are the gods of physical things.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know that that's true.
It's not a quiz. I don't know.
I don't know that that's true. But I remember somebody saying that one time to me, and I was just like, well, that seems to make it very simple. Okay. But as a general rule, I mean, they're sort of like warring tribes of gods, what with that marriage solved. So it's just like warring tribes of kings and...
So they're a little bit like the Montagues and the Capulets, but like if things worked out better?
Yeah, I guess. They're like the English and the French, or the English and the German, or the French and the German, or the English and the Scottish, or the Scottish and the French, or the Scottish and the German. Listen, it's like any 2 countries in Europe... Just ever.
Yeah, we can't talk about countries in the U.S. either because that would be... We're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Thor is an Aesir. He is that order of god. He is the son of Odin and Jord, who is the Mother Earth goddess.
Yeah.
So that's his mom and dad. Jord? Yeah,
Jord. I believe the J's are like Y's.
Oh, they probably are. My first my first one. Guys, you make this into a
Like
drinking game. There's a lot of words in here that I just,
Also,
I'm not know how to pronounce.
I'm not great at these either. So accept some of that. Comment below. Hit us up on social media. Tell us how we're saying words wrong. You know, help us help you.
Yeah, if you know how to speak this, language even, please tutor me in my speech on this. So that would be super helpful. Anyway, Thor is the son of Odin and Jord, who is the Mother Earth goddess. He is husband to Sif, who is a fertility goddess with long golden hair.
And then not so long golden hair, and then again long golden hair.
That's right.
You know that story.
And I believe Sif in the Marvel movies is like they made her into like a warrior goddess with black hair, right?
She's one of his.
Or maybe not a warrior goddess.
She's one of his merry men in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's I don't remember that actress's name. It totally just slipped me.
Oh, I don't know what her name is either.
Yeah, but yeah, she's one of his merry men in the in I think Thor 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's in both.
So Thor has a couple of kids as well. He with Sif has 2 children. He has a son whose name is Modi, and he is the god of strength, and he has a daughter whose name is Thrud, although it's spelt Thrud, so don't ask me. I don't make these things up. Thrud, daughter, and she is the goddess of war and strength, and possibly a Valkyrie. The way that she's written about in the texts that we do have is a little bit sort of ambiguous as to what exactly it is that she does, because really there's only a few stories, and we're not going to go super deep into them, but she seems super cool, and in my mind she's basically Lady Thor from the comic books, and that's just the headcanon that I'm going to live with. Now Thor has a third child whose name is Magni, and Magni is the god of bravery, but Magni has a different mother. She was a giant, and I did not write down her name. It was unpronounceable by me. I saw that, I tried it, and I was like, we're not going to do that today.
Okay, well.
Yeah. So, now...
A little behind the scenes on that one, guys. I guess.
So, Thor, in the Marvel side of things, has Loki as his brother. But really, that was just made up for the comics. There is, as far as I was able to find, and I have a day job, so I can't go super deep into this, but he is not Loki is not Thor's brother. In the Norse Pantheon, Thor only has, in the Norse Pantheon, I can't talk today, it's that Taco Bell. Thor has only half siblings, which some of them are Baldur, Idun, Hodor, and Bragi. Loki is a little bit more of like a step-brother to Odin in the traditional Norse pantheon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Loki.
I mean, they both fuck with each other like brothers, so...
They absolutely do, like stepchildren. Yeah. But we're not talking about Loki today, although we will be doing a deep dive on him soon, so definitely look forward to that.
Stay tuned for that one. That's coming up.
Thor drives a goat-drawn chariot, and I one of the things I love about the Norse pantheon is most of the gods have chariots that are driven by a variety of really interesting wildlife. Like Freya's is drawn by cats.
Yeah.
And Thor's is drawn by goats.
Yeah.
And he also possesses several magical relics. So the most popular of those and the most well-known is the Warhammer Mjolnir, which is a big hammer. And it's also used to bless items, contracts, and people. So it's used
a particularly small hammer.
Hallowing. Oh, it is a small hammer?
Well, okay. So quick Mjolnir story. Mjolnir aside. So when Loki was being a jackass and basically like Odin was like, none of your shit, homie. We'll kill you. You need to get this. You need to fix this up. So he went to some dwarves to forge a weapon for Thor. And while they were forging Mjolnir for him, he transformed into a fly and bit the dwarf who was working the bellows. Mm-hmm. And that caused... I'm pulling this off of my memory, so if I'm missing a thing, please let me know. But he he bites the one on the bellows, and so the fire doesn't get as hot as it's supposed to, or something to that extent, and that's what results in it being a smaller hammer with only a short haft. Because a hammer would traditionally have like a longer haft and be a larger thing. So yeah, that's why Mjolnir is a special hammer, because it is a small hammer because Loki's an asshole.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is because Loki's an asshole.
Now, Thor uses Mjolnir in battle as a weapon, but it's also used to hallow things. So that would be
consecrate or bless
people you're blessing, or contracts. In particular, marriage contracts are very common to be blessed by a hammer that represents Mjolnir. Cough, cough. As well as other items.
Yeah, so like, I mean, theoretically, the song Hammer, MC Hammer is just a ceremonial music. Stop Hammer Time. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just not gonna.
I want it.
No,
I want the cross up.
No.
I want to see Chris Hemsworth dancing around bloody Hammer Time style.
Also in the pants, or would he be dancing around in the Thor outfit?
In the pants. In the Thor outfit version of that crazy suit that he wears.
Wow, we can only hope.
Yeah, we can. You're welcome for that, by the by. Yeah. Anywho, that's the only. Also, his goats, who have names, whose names escape me. I don't know if you talk about this later, but because I don't know what's happening in these notes. I don't participate in them. That's her. His goats are enchanted with them returning to 100% okay the next morning. Yeah. So he can when he rests at night, he can kill one of his goats for food, and he often does this where he's like, oh, like this is like a sad poor family. We'll have goat. I'm just gonna stop here and hang out with you guys. We're gonna have goat tonight. And then they come back and they're perfectly fine.
Magically come back to life.
There's a story about Loki fucking that up also.
There's a lot of stories
by breaking one of their legs, and they don't heal back properly ever again. It's a whole fucking thing. Loki's a real asshole.
So Thor also has a magical relic that is a belt, and I'm just gonna have you try this one. It's this.
That's Mjolnir?
Yep. And that belt doubles his strength.
Yeah. It's just a belt of strength. It's like a D&D upgrade. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's a belt of strength.
He also has a pair of iron gloves, and these iron gloves allow him to wield Mjolnir.
Yeah.
Both because of the short haft, but also because it is impossibly difficult to wield Mjolnir.
Yeah, well, yes. If you ever picked up like an actually sized Warhammer, and then you pick up like an actually sized, regardless of the fact that it's a comic book version of Mjolnir, you'll notice that weapon is like incredibly, I'm making a hand gesture for a podcast, it's incredibly unbalanced in the hand, so you have to wield it in like a completely absurd way that it just is incredibly strenuous on the hand for something like that in battle. So his basically iron gauntlets of increased strength and grippiness. Again, this guy's just a D&D character. I freaking love it. They're what is this? Yarn grippier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which basically means literally iron grip.
Yeah. It's just iron grip that just lock it on.
Yeah.
I get it, dude. I've played this character in Dungeons and Dragons.
Now, the last thing that is a magical relic, well, maybe not the last thing, but the last main thing that he has as a magical relic is a bit controversial. And the reason that I say that is because it is a product of the comic books. So it's a product of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That's not real, but people are starting to treat it that way.
I am including it in this list because everybody's vision of Thor might be a little bit different. And if yours is a little bit closer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm not going to hate on that.
Yeah.
However you want to do that is however you want to do that.
As long as you're being a good person out of the end of this, like that's all that freaking matters.
So the last magical relic is the Axe Stormbreaker, and in the comics he wields Stormbreaker because he is unable to wield Mjolnir because he has been deemed not worthy.
Yeah.
So Stormbreaker
also that whole worthiness thing
has nothing to do with the actual
totally
Mjolnir.
Comic book. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, keep
going. So the Axe Stormbreaker enhances the powers of its wielder as well. So it's another D&D, or as I like to think of it, World of Warcraft item. Excuse me, because it just like upgrades.
Yeah, it just makes it more
and
forward.
what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, for the most part, and now for the most part, we're not really going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, though. But there are some interesting parallels to it and interesting ways that it's evolved.
And Thor's gotten closer to true Norse and further away from true Norse, depending on what portion of the comic books you're reading. And I mean, like, you know, we don't know as much as it seems like we would, should, or actually do know about the Norse history and pantheon, simply because there's just not a lot of like type 1 like clean sources.
Well,
for these.
and
it's
for regular
a lot of
listeners, that's a thing that you hear us talk about a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll go back in time and we'll talk about the origins. So the first thing we'll talk about is the name Thor. So our modernized name Thor comes from the Old Norse word Thor. This word appears in Old English as Tunor. And both forms actually come from the Old High German, which is actually a specific language. And in Old High German, it was Thrunas, which means thunder.
Yeah.
And according to some scholars, we can trace the origin of this word as far back as the Proto-Indo-Europeans, who lived from 2500 BCE to 4500 BCE. So we're talking like we can go back somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 years, of give or take in terms of that. And the Proto-Indo-Europeans, I find fascinating, but they had a thunder god whose name was Perkunos. And that is what some scholars are thinking today that the origin of Thor comes from, both as far as the deity himself, but also as far as the words linguistically.
You know, Perkunos to Thundras, and kind of working back. You know what? One of my favorite things is sort of like the evolutionary history of words and the manner in which we say things, especially because, like, regardless of how you say a word, even a word like Thor, I imagine some people are going to have, you know, particular unrest about the manner in which I've just said Thor. But, like, you know, that's part of the evolution of the language is how people say it in different places.
Yeah.
You know, it's like aluminum versus aluminium.
Yeah. Now,
it's not really a wrong way. It's just different.
We can try to trace the origins of the words back as far as we want, but much like other things, the earliest mention of Thor is on a piece of jewelry. We've seen that a lot, where jewelry or votive items, altars, is sort of where you're seeing the first mention of the name. And the earliest mention of him is on a piece of jewelry from the 7th century, so it's in the 600s. It's a bit earlier than some of the other ones that we've seen. And it was found in Bavaria. Now, prior to this, during the Roman occupation of Europe, so going from, say, like 500 Common Era back to about 100 Common Era, maybe a little bit earlier. I'm not 100% sure on that date, but it's close. During the Roman occupation, there are references to Thor in art as well as temples and pottery and murals. Not so much references like written down, other than some smatterings of things. But what they were doing was they were referencing Thor in the art, where it looks like Thor, but they're actually talking about either the Roman god Jupiter, who is likened to Zeus, or the Greek hero Hercules, who uses a club and hammer. And I think actually taking Jupiter and Hercules together is really the perfect marriage of Thor. Yep. And that's not to say that Thor came from those two, but the Romans did this thing where they took their religion, and then any place they took over, they tried to take whatever religious beliefs were in that place and liken them directly to their Roman religion.
Back remunerate them into their own faith. It's also not just the Romans. Like, vaguely every conquering faith has done this.
That's very true.
You either like squash and salt the earth, or you just like sort of re-engineer the ideas of it, and you're just like, you know, you're a flower person. I mean, that's just the same flowers that we're talking about, man. And those flowers are this lady, and this lady is this other lady, and I mean, so
it's basically the same lady.
We're praying to the same thing, right? And you're like, I guess, like, the mental gymnastics to argue with you are inexcusable. I have fields to till, so sure. Yeah, high five.
Yeah.
Please move past. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's not necessarily that there's some sort of actual connection, but like historically, you'll often see sort of like statue rebranding, which is the way that I like to think of it. Is just like a marketing team rebranding. They're just like, look at this new land. Look at these dope new trees. We got to name some of these. We don't have words for some of these trees. Look at these statues and rocks. Everybody, we got to rebrand these statues and rocks. Let's start thinking. And there's just like a team of Roman marketers just like sitting around like a bench table kind of thing, trying to figure out how to rebrand Thor. You know, this one he's got a club, make a Hercules. This one he doesn't. Make a Zeus.
Exactly. So it's a little bit like that. Yeah. Only maybe not at all. The thing is we don't know. So maybe it was exactly
way more nefarious, right? I just like trying to think of it in like a fun way.
Now, in the Viking Age, which is generally thought of as being from the 8th century to the 11th century, the name Thor gained huge popularity. And that's you having a kid, you naming your kid Thor. Huge popularity gain. And we think that this may have to do with the Christianization of Europe. This is around the same time that the Christianization of Europe happened, as we've talked about in previous episodes. There is sort of this weird amount of time where there's missing information, and all of a sudden the Christianization of Europe happens, and we get all kinds of data from these monks that were traveling around and trying to convert people to Christianity, and that's sort of where we're seeing a lot of that stuff. And it's thought that the people who worshipped Thor and the rest of the Norse gods were sort of naming their offspring Thor in part as a way to keep the old ways, as well as to give like, you know, a big fuck you to the man kind of thing.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I mean, you know, it's sort of like, it's that thing where it's sort of like by the name you gain the power, or at least, you know, hopefully you're in that direction. I mean, like, look at like Hathor, or Thorson, or Thorsdadir, or any of those kind of names. You know, it's just... Yeah. It's a tradition that exists.
Absolutely.
I dig it a lot.
I think it's really cool,
I think it's super rad.
Yeah. So what's interesting is normally around the time of the Christianization of Europe, wow.
Back at it, man. Back at it. I don't know what the song is that I played at the beginning of these.
Too many cooks. Normally we see during these times of the Christianization of Europe where monks are writing down the information about the native peoples and their beliefs. But for Thor, there was actually a German chronicler who was not necessarily associated with the church, who went around and was compiling all of the information about the Norse gods that we can find. And some of it that we have today is attributed to him and some of it is not. But it is notable because he was not directly connected to the church. So this would have been very rare for someone to go from place to place and to basically just sort of like write stuff down and chronicle things. And I think that would be a really cool thing to do. Anyway, so in the 11th century, a German chronicler wrote that the people of Uppsala, which is in Sweden, only made sacrifices to Thor during times of plague or famine. So when we look at ancient pantheons, we see a lot of talk about sacrifices and that sort of thing, but it is interesting to note that it was observed by him and is thought to be by scholars that Thor didn't really have regular sacrifices in the way that some other gods would. Now, we don't actually know, we don't have a time machine, but it's very interesting to note because that is sort of a deviation from a lot of different gods from other pantheons. And most of what we know about Thor comes from the Poetic Edda, which is different from the Prose Edda. So thanks for having almost the same name, guys. And the Poetic Edda is a compilation of Old Norse poems, and it was put together in the 13th century. And there are a whole bunch of tales of Thor. We are not going to go super deep into all of them, but there are a couple that I wanted to talk about briefly because they really kind of give you a flavor text for who Thor is.
Yeah, we may do on... I've been thinking about this for our second Thor episode, or Thepisode, as it were. Threpisode.
Thor episode.
Yeah, they're like 3/5lings. They're threflings. So on our next Thor episode, we may literally just go like, here are the 3 stories about Thor that we're going to tell you. There are some, given a little bit of practice, I could probably recite them from memory, given just a little bit of like forethought, since I generally get these kind of fresh, and I just sort of bounce my vapid, insane knowledge off the notes. But he has there are some great Thor stories.
He really does.
Some just absolute party stories. Absolute parties.
He is an absolute party guy.
He's so rad. Yeah.
And it was hard to pick, but I picked the ones that I think give the most fun things about Thor. So in Voluspa, it is foretold that Thor will fight the Jormungandr, which is a giant serpent, during Ragnarok, which is
the giant serpent.
Oh, there's only one, that's right.
No, well, I mean, there are other giant serpents, but not as giant or as literally important as Jormungandr.
I see. Yeah. So, it's foretold that he's going to slay a giant snake during the end of the world. So,
son of Loki, something like that? Jormungandr has some connection to Loki. I don't know.
I don't know.
I think he's one of Loki's kids. For some reason, that's in my mind.
I feel like that's wrong.
I feel like that's wrong also, but I don't remember. I'm going to look it up right now.
Boy, you better look that up.
I know he has a connection there. I just don't know what it is right off the top of my head.
So, as part of this prophecy, as it were, that Thor is going to slay the Jormungandr, it's that not only will he kill it, but in doing so, he will get bitten by it and will die shortly thereafterwards as a result of his venom, and that's how the world ends.
Yes. Also, boom. Boom. If you're listening to this, I put my hand in faces. Boom. I was right. Alright? Loki had 3 kids, right? Odin took Loki's 3 children, by Angrboda, the wolf Fenrir, Hel, and Jormungandr. And he tossed Jormungandr into the oceans of Midgard, and then he grew super big, circled a whole planet. He's the serpent that circles Midgard. Son of Loki.
This Thor dive is very quickly becoming like a major in Thor and a minor in Loki.
That's probably fair. I know a bunch of these stories. It's just, remembering them.
And I know that I'm really truncating these stories, but that's because we only have a limited amount of time.
For this one, we're just briefly going over a bunch of stuff. We will do more stories next time.
The next time we do a Thor one.
The next time we do
not necessarily the next episode.
No, the next episode something else.
Will be about Beltane.
Yes.
So in the Lay of Harbardr, which means graybeard, Thor comes across a ferryman, and this ferryman is super rude to Thor. He just wants to take the boat and not have to walk the long way, right? And this ferryman does not want to take Thor across. They end up arguing, and then they end up having a flighting match. And a flighting match is basically a rap battle. They lyrically battle each other with disses until one person wins.
Yeah, it's just a diss battle.
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's like a real thing. That was a real ass thing back then. It's like diss battles, and not even just like that far back then. Like even like up through like modern like England and stuff. There have been like cultural normalizations of like these like shipside diss battles.
Yeah.
In my mind, there's like a hype dude down here throwing mad beatbox and such. I know that's not actually how it works, but like in my mind,
I feel like there's definitely a group of people in the background that are like, oh, like I've been to rap battles and it's pretty amazing.
I mean, I don't know that you do that when it's like Thor diss battling a giant and you just like, but way the fuck over there so they can't hear you. 'Cause you don't want to get involved in that shit, right? That's horrifying.
Yeah, so Thor gets involved in this rap battle with Harbardr, and it ends up escalating, and this graybeard guy does not want to let him across. Turns out the graybeard guy is Odin, Thor's dad, and Thor ends up getting so irritated by this rap battle that he just ends up not taking the ferry and he just walks around the long way.
I mean, that's a rough diss.
Right? And then the last story that we're going to talk about for Thor is probably my favorite. So in another poem, Thor wakes up and finds out that Mjolnir is missing and is trying to figure it out. And he's talking to Loki, and Loki's like, I could probably help you out with that. So Loki turns into a bird and he flies to Jotunheim, which is the home of the giants, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Jotunheim.
And to ask about it. But they don't really, I don't know that they really say why. He's just like, maybe the giants.
It's kind of always maybe the giants.
It's kind of always maybe the giants, yeah. So the Jotun Thrymir, the Jotun Thrymir says that he hid Mjolnir, and he's not going to give Mjolnir back until Freya comes and marries him. So Loki flies back and tells Thor, and they're like, I guess Freya has to marry this guy. Yeah. And then they tell Freya.
He tells everybody. He doesn't just tell Thor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he shows up at the court and is like, everybody, he wants Freya. And Freya's like, I'm sorry, what? And everybody is just like, man, it sounds like Freya's got to marry this guy, I guess.
And Freya's like
Thor needs his hammer. And Freya's like, what the fuck is this on about? And everybody's like, I mean, I guess it's the, like, crowded room. Yeah. Just like, I mean, I guess we have to do this.
So the Norse gods, they hold a thing.
Yeah.
It's actually the name of what that is. They hold a thing.
Yeah, it's the best. Things are like important group meetings about
what
stuff.
To do about this Mjolnir Freya situation. And they end up deciding that Thor should go in Freya's stead.
Yes.
But disguised as Freya.
Because he was a beautiful man.
He is a beautiful man.
And this giant has only heard bloody Thrymir has only heard like tales of her beauty and stuff, and you know they're like we got a plan. This is legitimately like a 90s Disney cartoon level of a plan. It's so ridiculous.
It's very Emperor's New Groove.
Exactly.
So Loki and Thor. So Thor dresses up as Freya in complete like wedding garb, which includes a veil. Yeah. Obviously important.
To hide.
So Loki and Thor go and to meet the
Thrymir.
To meet Thrymir, and he's stoked, right? He's marrying like the most beautiful.
He won, right? He stole the hammer.
He stole the hammer, and he gets the girl.
First you get the hammer, then you get the girl.
Yeah.
Then you get the hammer.
So he invited all of his family and like close friends probably to this like big feast where he's gonna marry her and everything's gonna be great. Yeah. So Thor gets there and he's like, oh, it's her. And Thor is hungry. And Thor eats a ton of food. He eats like
it's just like at their wedding table.
Yeah, this is like a wedding table.
Because he shows up and Thrymir's is like, I want to see your face. And Thor's like, no.
Not until after we're married.
And Thrymir's just like, make it happen right now. And then they get married and they're sitting at the table and he's like, oh, let me see your face now that we're married. He's just like, ha ha ha, I have a mighty hunger. I should probably eat some food first. And
he's just fasted for 8 days because I was so excited to come and marry you.
Oh,
so dude, Thor eats like 2 whole oxen and is just pounding jugs of meat.
Shit-assed.
And Thrymir, he thinks this is a bit weird, but he's like, well, I mean, like, lady's gonna be hungry.
She seems like a big, strong lady. She's got to stay big and strong. Plus, she's gonna be having giant babies and whatnot.
He goes along with it, and he thinks that she's just hungry. Yeah. And he tries to like get all up in close to like give her a kiss because he wants to kiss his new bride. And he lifts up the top part. It's like a 2-part veil. One part holding the like disguising the beard. Top part is holding the eyes. So he lifts up the top part and goes to like lift open the bottom part. And Thor is like, oh my god! So he's like wide, terrified eyes. And he tries to go in for the kiss, and in my mind, it's like a wet, slobbery, gross kiss.
Of course
and Loki is like, "Oh, you can't kiss her yet. Look at look at the next course of the feast," and like shoves the veil down. And Thrymir is like, "Oh, maybe she's just scared to be a bride. You know, ladies don't know what ladies don't know."
Yeah, they're scared.
They're scared. So then later on, Mjolnir is literally brought out to sanctify, to hallow this union.
Yeah.
And at that moment, Thor loses his mind and all of the chill that he brought with him. So he grabs the axe and kills Thrymr.
Hammer, but yes.
Yeah, or I'm sorry, he grabs the hammer and he kills everyone, including Thrymr, and then him and Loki go home.
Yeah. So
it's a truly absurd story with a very like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess look a gift Thor in the mouth. Is that the lesson there?
I mean, if you're marrying somebody, you got to make sure that's them.
Yeah, you got to make sure that it's actually them. Fucking surprise, surprise, right?
Yeah, so there's a ton of really, really fun, really interesting stories surrounding Thor, and almost all of them are, one, in a level of absurdity that are like these, but two, a level of fun and vivaciousness.
Yeah. He drinks the oceans a little low. He fights like he just like single-handedly murders just whole grips of monsters.
He goes to random people's houses and decides to have a feast whether they like it or not.
That's really just a god thing overall. I mean, if you really start to think about it, all gods just sort of invade people's homes and like have food with them. Yeah. So that's a thing that happens.
Yeah. So there's a ton of interesting things there. We definitely don't have time to talk about all of them or even one of them in depth. There's a lot that you can take out of these. Yeah. But I wanted to touch upon a couple of them because I want to give you guys an idea of what the Norse side of Thor looks like. Yeah. Because the creation of and the popularity of him in the comics and in the movies in the MCU has helped to fuel this huge revival of interest in Thor at the same time that there's a huge revival in heathenry and paganism and earth magic and looking back at that stuff and bringing it back up. And as time moves on, I think that these things will sort of start to blend together and the stories of what Thor does in the MCU, I personally think will start to become a part of the canonization of the mythology that is Thor.
Well, it will be canonized into the mythology.
That is, I think that we are...
Certainly.
I think that we're witnessing myths, essentially, being written now that will persist.
Well, I mean, if it was just like a real-ass human named Thor and he was doing a bunch of crazy shit like that would... And it's not like you're gonna open up a newspaper tomorrow and they're gonna be talking about how, like, hey guys, the Church of Thor has decided that, whatever, Marvel comic number 65 of the Amazing Thor has now been canonized into legend. Like, that's not how that works. I mean, theoretically, at least.
I mean, maybe there is.
You never know. But it is the sort of like what memories persist and what gets altered and what gets changed. I know that, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about like runes and things like that. And I imagine that this takes place for all practices and faiths and heathenries and such like that. But there is a fairly divided nature with regard to Norse mythology about like modern style Norse paganism and like historical Norse like actual stuff. And so it's that thing where it's like if you're reaching out and you're getting some like sort of not cool feedback, then like you might just be kind of targeting the wrong demographic of Norse mythology, because the mythology has the historical side of it and the pagan side of it, and those are and there are differences in belief between the two of them with regard to what was and wasn't a tale and what should and shouldn't be attributed, and what something was and wasn't like practiced or worshipped or anything to that extent. So like just because somebody said that you've done a thing and it's wrong doesn't necessarily mean that you did a thing that was wrong. Everybody's got an opinion.
Absolutely. And for I think anybody personally, really the takeaway is that you sort of make it what you want it to be. Yeah. So to you, if your Thor looks like Chris Hemsworth and does not...
Chris Hemsworth.
I am really killing it on my enunciation tonight.
Not doing great with words over here.
Well, we had dinner before, and we don't normally have it until afterwards, so I think my brain's having a hard time digesting food and allowing me to speak at the same time.
Does food confuse your mind? More or later at 12.
So I think that if your Thor is Chris Hemsworth and not more traditional historical Norse Thor with the red beard, then that's fine. That's how you want to perceive him. And if you want to incorporate some of the things from the comic books or the movies into your personal worship of Thor, that's fine too. But if you're on the flip side and you don't want to use those things, then that's also fine.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that either side of these can gatekeep the other side.
Yeah. Well,
so
this is the difference, right? Your practice is your practice, and that doesn't affect somebody else's practice, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's exactly how simple this is, man. If you want to practice and believe in a certain way, you can't gatekeep other people on practicing and believing, because that just makes you an asshole. That has nothing to do with your practice. That's just because you're an asshole. Right? So don't be an asshole. We all believe a little different. We all practice a little different. We all have different understandings of these things, right? My blue isn't your blue, existential dread, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, that's not what we're doing here. So bear with not being an asshole. This is an asshole-free zone. This zone, just smooth. Nothing there on the butt.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I will draw the line at the supremacy side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Thor is not a symbol for hate. The Norse gods are not a symbol for hate.
No.
The people who are taking
never
these
had anything to
and
do with
twisting
supremacy
them
like that.
are people that are doing it wrong.
Yeah, they're just, but this is the thing. They're just assholes, right? Odinism, not an asshole thing. That guy's an asshole. Whoever that guy is that you're thinking about, right? So we need to, as a people, tell assholes they're assholes and tell them to shut up. But like, we gotta accept that, we gotta think before we act with regard to like demonizing symbols or demonizing a whole faith simply because like a bunch of assholes have decided to take it for their own and lie about what the heck it actually means.
Yeah.
Which is, white supremacists and the Norse mythology. But we don't need to get into that. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. We just had to do that token thing. We're not talking about cleansing things with fire necessarily tonight. So we got to throw in our PSA.
Fire safety. Be fire safe.
So I think that's actually a pretty good segue into how we work with Thor. So you are the one who mostly works with Thor out of the two of us. So tell me a little bit about your experience with Thor.
Okay. So Thor is sort of like a secondary god of worship for me as I practice some function of Norse paganism. But for me, Thor is used for like the equivalent of drawing a circle. Is that what you call that?
Casting a circle,
that's the term. It's sort of like the equivalent of that. So I do like a hammer rite, which is basically like hallowing a space. And Thor's one of the two gods that I call for when I do that to sort of like watch over a space. To me, Thor is much a god of like protection and like Thor's very like male fertility in a lot of the like practice and study that I've done. So he's like protection and like male fertility and like a god of like the storm. So like when we do like stormwater stuff or anything like that, I get like a lot of Thor in the storm and stuff like that. I've never had like beef or issues. I know that sounds completely absurd, but Thor is sort of like steadfastly on guard, sort of a chill guy. As much as when I think of Thor, my first thought is often of the comic book character. One, I'm a huge Thor the comic book character fan, and a big fan of obviously the MCU and all that kind of stuff. And to me, that Thor always has and always will be like clean cut, shaven, long blonde hair, very Thor, like the comic booksy.
Yeah.
Thor from like a worship standpoint and like the actual god of thunder Thor has always been like big guy, red hair, big red, unruly red beard, like always, always, always. You know, so it's kind of interesting to sort of have both of those images in your head when you think of a character like Thor. And Thor is one of those larger than life characters. I love the stories of Thor. They're always fantastic. Whenever a story, like a poem or a story's coming out in the Norse and it's got something to do with Thor or Thor's in it, you know that crazy shit's gonna come down, because that's just Thor.
Yeah.
He just gets involved in crazy shit all the time. It's rad.
Yeah, and you wear a Mjolnir around your neck every day.
All the time.
Right?
Yeah. This never comes off. In fact, this one, I've been wearing them for flipping a decade or more than a decade, and this one I've had for like 7 years.
Oh, you've had it longer than we've known each other.
Yeah, I think I've had this for like 7 years or something. Nice, like copper or brass piece, handmade, that I picked up at the Scottish Games. But yeah, I've always worn a Thor's hammer, even though a lot of my primary tattoo work and all that is Odin.
Yeah.
Surrounds Odin. It's a symbol of protection. So
Exactly.
It's just the thing. I literally always wear this. It's actually on a piece of paracord, which is not a safe necklace.
No, it is not.
If it gets caught on something, it's just gonna yank my head right off. So I wear it like really tight. It's a very like collar style necklace.
Yes, but it is adjustable.
I also
so it can come
also
off.
wear a gold circlet on my wrist, and one of these days I'll get one, like an upper arm or a neck one. Those are
that would
really
be
cool, but yeah.
Yeah. So when we got married, you did a ton of research.
Yes.
For our wedding ceremony, we did as best as you could recreate an old Norse wedding ceremony with some contemporary paganism put in there for me.
Mixed into
and
for you, and to fill out the story.
Thor played a good part.
Yeah.
It played a fairly large part in our ceremony. So if you were out there as someone who were looking to incorporate this into a ceremony like that, what's the basic idea of what that is in a...
Thor plays two key roles, especially in like a wedding ceremony, but as in general in any ceremony. But the first, again, is like hallowing a space, sacredizing a space, protecting a space, casting a circle around a space, right? Making a space more special, right? And so that's... what is it? Hallow and hold this holy stead or something. Man, I wish I remember the lines. I wrote the damn thing, but I wrote it, 5 years ago, or however long we've been married. It's so for me, Thor is it's the way that I have it categorized in my head and in my ritual work and ritual books is a hammer rite. Which is to basically cast it in the 4 cardinal directions and ask Thor to sort of like watch over and protect the space. And then the second thing is because Thor is a symbol of male fertility, but also as a symbol of fertility, he's also a symbol. He's also generally connected with weddings as like this sort of like as part of keeping a promise and protecting the marriage and protecting those entering into this compact, because it's like it's a pact, marriage. And so it's like protecting this pact and protecting those entering into this pact and sort of like sacredizing the union. So we have a wedding hammer. I've literally used this wedding hammer like
all the time.
All the time.
We use this hammer all the time.
It is my go-to like 3.5 pound wooden handle sledgehammer that's barely wrapped in leather anymore, because I use it for like actually splitting wood and actually like moving and breaking rocks and shit like that.
Yeah.
Because I think that weapons are tools. That's their point, is to be used, right? Like an axe not hewing wood is missing its true calling.
That's true.
But we use it. I use it all the time still. But yeah, we have our wedding axe, which was used to hallow the hall that we got married in. The hammer. I'm sorry, wedding hammer. Different thing. There was a lot of weapons at the wedding. Yeah. But to sacredize the hall, but as well as to bless the union.
Yeah.
Which was it's a heavy hammer to hold at arm's length, like
above your head,
up above our
whilst
heads,
reciting a few stanzas of poetry.
Yeah, Dad crushed it. It's fine.
He absolutely did. Yeah. So that's really how we work with Thor. Now, we, as usual, have some spells for you, but I want to preface these spells by saying that these spells were written by us, and they don't have any direct connection to historical or traditional Norse practices.
Yeah,
so,
this is just something that we do with that. Like, these spells are sort of like our workings with Thor, right? So you can take these, you can use them somewhere else, you can what have you with them. It's just our way of interpreting working with him. I guarantee that my weird eccentric attachment to the Norse gods is probably different than somebody else's, and that's what it is. We're not gonna talk on behalf of somebody else's faith. I think that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
So
and if you're looking for something that's more traditional, I highly encourage you to get out there and look at that. That's not what these things are.
No,
but if
these
you
are just
want
sort
to work with Thor, these things are a great gateway to blend whatever you're currently using with Thor's innate energies.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're back. We're back at it.
Yeah, and with that, let's get into some spells.
Yeah.
So the first one is a bit more of a collecting kind of spell.
It's a deck building spell. It's only a funny joke if you're a board game nerd.
Or if you're into Magic, which I don't know if that's considered a board game or not.
That's a card game.
Yeah,
that has a different name.
Okay. So the first one that we're going to talk about is a spell for Stormwater. And there's a lot of different ways that you can take this spell, and there's a lot of different kinds of storms, as it were, that you can take to use their different energies. So there are some people that like to use a calm rainstorm as a little bit more of a cleansing energy, and there are those who like to use a powerful thunderstorm as a more destructive energy, but it's really up to you how you choose to use that. So you can do that, you don't have to do that, but there are some people that prefer to work with different types of storm energies for different types of workings.
Yep.
And we are a bit late in the season for storms, at least for Northern California, because who knows if we'll ever get rain again here. But hopefully some of the rest of you can use some of this. For us, we probably won't be able to do this until Christmas. So during a storm, preferably one with lightning and thunder, if you want to really harness the power of Thor, because he's lightning and he's thunder, place a bowl outside. Now, I recommend to use a bowl as opposed to like a jar, just because a bowl has a wider mouth, so be able to catch more water in there. Yeah. Catches better, it's also a bit more stable, and it's a lot easier to remember a giant bowl that you placed outside than it is a mason jar without a lid, which may sit outside for however long you decide to collect it.
If you can, be safe. If there's a lightning storm and there is thunder and lightning crashing around and it is crashing near you, don't go outside. Don't go underneath trees. Like, remember the ground effect. Let's not be dumb, guys.
Yes.
All that being said, I generally recommend not a glass bowl unless that's going to be like up on an outside table or something. Mm-hmm. And that's just because it inevitably, even if it's up on a table, like, it can fall and break. You can kick it. A thing that I've actually done, kicking a glass bowl and breaking it. A wood bowl is actually, that's a great use for those silly wood bowls.
You can use a large pot or a pan. Don't use cast iron. But you can also use those to collect it.
Yeah.
And
stainless steel brewing pot, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's got a little spigot on the bottom. Those are perfect.
Yeah, and it would be a great idea to wash this thing first, just so that there's no schmoo inside of whatever your collecting thing is. So you take the bowl, or your pot or your pan. Yeah, don't use a dirty dish. It's gross. And take it outside. Place it somewhere that makes sense for you. Perhaps you have a table outside. Maybe it sits on your porch or on a windowsill. I don't know where you live. Whatever makes the most sense for you. So, and when you place that outside, preferably at a time that it is safe for you to be standing outside, either before or during a storm. You can have an umbrella. You can stand inside with the bowl outside.
Yeah.
Again, be safe. Don't
if
get
it's
sick.
like super rainy, you could just set a bowl out there and then like walk back inside your house and just look out a window at the bowl and say some stuff. That's also fine.
Exactly.
Like,
so
don't get sick. Don't get sick for magic, dog.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
So there's no brownie points for standing in the pouring rain and doing
Unless you
it.
like that, which
Unless you're into it. Yeah.
I love
so,
it.
So you're going to place your receptacle outside, and then you're going to say, Thor, I call upon you to fill this vessel with your sacred storm water. All that it touches will be purified and protected from evil. And then leave your receptacle out there to catch the water falling from the sky. And once the storm is over, go ahead and pour the water into a container, and you can use this water for protection spells or to cleanse items that can be wet. However, do not drink this water.
Yeah, don't drink water.
Don't drink water that's just been randomly kept in a jar. The reason that bottled water exists in the way that it does is because they have to make sure that it is not contaminated and is safe.
Don't drink storm water or moon water or any of your collected water.
Yeah.
You wanna have water moonified or stormified, take a bottle of Alhambra, put that shit outside.
Unopened. Yeah.
Just let it just be outside and then do that. Like,
do that with this storm. You could take a whole case of water bottles, put them outside, and have Thor bless those.
Set a case of Coors out there, storm bless that shit, crack into some thunder.
I feel like Thor would prefer.
Give him better beer than Coors. We're not sponsored by any of these. We're just giving names here.
Yeah.
You know
so that's stormwater, and you can use that for a variety of things.
Yeah.
We typically
jar spells.
Yeah, we typically collect these water and this sort of thing when there's a particularly auspicious date or a particularly big storm.
Yeah.
And we just sort of save it up and we use it however we end up using it.
Yeah.
So there's not really a particular thing. Just don't drink it.
Yeah, you can also, for the use of stormwater, obviously you can collect it and use it for something. If it's safe, again, I cannot stress the if it's safe part enough, but if it's safe, you can also just like be out in the storm in sort of celebration of Thor. That's one of the reasons why I like standing in just like incredibly hard pouring rain. It's dramatic.
Usually while chopping wood.
Yeah. It's dramatic. I like it.
I'm not complaining.
So yeah, you can do a bunch of stuff with stormwater. It's a nice thing to have. You just have it on your little stormwater on your altar.
Yeah, and it's very energetic too. There's definitely
it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Some good stuff that you get out of that. And then you can also use that in the next spell if you wish to, which is a protection spell, a la Thor. So for this one, you'll need a piece of paper and a writing utensil.
This is like a crafty.
This one's more crafty.
This is a crafty kind of spell.
Yeah, they're well a little bit less crafty than the previous one, I suppose. So you will take your piece of paper and on it draw a small hammer in the center of the piece of paper. It does not matter how big this piece of paper is. It can be a full sheet of paper. It could be a Post-it. It's really up to you. And so you draw the small hammer in the center of the piece of paper, and then draw a thick border just inside of the paper. So you can make this border in a circle if you want, or you can make it square, whatever shape your paper is. It's really up to you. And then once you have your hammer and your border on there, visualize the hammer radiating the power of Thor and protecting anything that will be written inside of the border of this paper. And then write what you would like to protect anywhere inside of the border of this paper. It would work best if you focus on one particular thing, rather than saying, I want you to protect my house, and I want you to protect my car, and protect my dog. You know, like, do one for each. That way you're really not splitting those energies there. So write what it is that you'd like to protect. And you could write it in any way, shape, or form that you want. But as far as magic goes, it is always better to be very specific. Don't just say, protect me. Protect you from what? Protect you from all harm. Protect me from illness. Protect my house from a tree falling on it. You know, you don't necessarily need to go super into detail there, but rather than just saying, protect my family, which is great, you want to try to be a little bit more specific with it, because I find that you typically get better results with specificity than you do with vagueness.
Yeah, definitely.
So once you've written down what you want to protect in the side of this border, now say or think, if you are not a say out loud kind of person, Thor, protector of Midgard, I call upon you to protect whatever the thing is that you wrote in there, as is written on this paper. Keep the thing safe and protect it from all who would do it or them harm. And then fold the paper up and keep it someplace safe. Because you want this to be more of a permanent spell, I recommend that you really keep this in a safe place and not burn it or soak it in water or throw it away or eat it or any of the variety of things that you can do.
Yeah.
If your particular feelings about magic make you want to do that, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you what to do necessarily, but it would be best that you keep it someplace safe, because it is, in effect, written on the paper is keeping it safe as the paper exists.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want with that paper.
Generally, I like when I have done something similar to this. I'm not super wordy with spells and such. I'm not that kind of a man wizard or whatever. But
okay.
Weirdest way I could think of saying that. No, I do it on the back of a business card. Mm-hmm. Right? Or like on a small yellow Post-it note or whatever, and then I just put it in my wallet. Mm-hmm. And then some point in time in the distant future, I remember it, and then it gets disposed of.
Yeah.
But that's generally at a point in time when I'm pulling things out of my wallet, and I'm like, what's this completely blank business card that's just white on both sides, and it's like got that texture, that texture that business cards get when they've been in your wallet for too long, where they're like rough, and you're just like, there's no information on this completely blank business card because it's been in my wallet long enough that all the ink's just rubbed off on other shit. So that's generally when I throw that stuff away.
Yeah.
Is when it's lost its ability to be a thing recognizable.
And you can put it away someplace safe and like hide it. You sometimes hear about like, oh, somebody's, got an old book or found something in an attic and there's this weird slip of paper in it. You can put it underneath your mattress. You could put it in one of your drawers. You could put it in a book that you never use, or you can fold it up all tiny and put it into a tiny decorative container and then decorate that container. You can just shove it in a drawer unceremoniously, or you can also put it in your book of shadows, because you know what you should be doing? Writing this stuff down. It is highly recommended to write down what it is that you're doing so that you can, one, remember that you did it, and two, be able to build upon that with future knowledge as time goes on. Yeah. So those are our two super fun spells for Thor, and they're super easy too. So,
and if you want written versions of them, they will be available on our Patreon. There's a Join Our Coven. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah, join our Patreon coven.
Yeah, join our Patreon coven. It's fun.
Yeah, and you will have free copies of not only what we talked about today, as well as the spells and the full correspondence list, which I'm going to get to right now. Yeah. So for those of you regular listeners, all two of you, you know that I love my correspondence lists, and we're just going to get into it. So Thor, again, is known for agriculture, fertility, hallowing, good luck in battle, protection, strength, storms. His sacred animal is a goat, or a pair of goats, if you are able to do so.
Yeah.
His color is red, like the color of his beard.
Like his fiery red beard.
Like his fiery red beard.
Yeah.
And much like that, a stone that you can use for Thor is carnelian. It is a bright red. I love carnelian. It has such vibrant energy. It definitely reminds me of Thor.
Yeah.
Or Thor reminds me of carnelian. I'm not entirely sure which.
Why not both?
Yeah. As far as herbs go, dragon's blood, I don't know that it's necessarily red, but it has that like feel to it. But also oak,
Dragon's
because
blood
of its
turns things
strength.
red or something.
I think it does. Oak because of its strength.
Yeah.
Pine. woodsy kind of lumberjack smells.
Yeah.
So, Thor is particularly fond of food and drink. In particular, he loves mead. That is his number one go-to. But he also likes beer, meat, any hearty meal. He is not picky. He likes it all.
I'm with Thor. Like, beer and meat. That's all I need, man. I need none of this broccoli shit. I don't get it, man. It's not good for you.
Man, why you gotta hate on broccoli like that?
Yeah. It's all good if it's uncooked. I just don't like cooked vegetables. Yeah, I'm real particular about them.
Now, there are some deities that are similar to Thor from other pantheons that you can look at, too, if you want to either look for something in a pantheon that you prefer or just sort of explore what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, or maybe you just recognize one of these ones and you don't know who Thor is.
It does not mean that they are direct one-to-one comparisons.
Oh, no, that's just general related deities.
Yeah, but Thor, similar deities to Thor are Zeus and Jupiter, which we recently just talked about. A thunderbird, which I understand is an animal, but was also worshipped as a god figure. Perquonos, which is from the Proto-Indo-Europeans. Osiris, if you're looking on the Egyptian side of things, is probably the closest that you're going to find there, although correct me if you think that I'm wrong and there's somebody that should be in that place instead. You can also look at Indra and Astrape and Bronte. As far as other miscellaneous things, Thor is also associated with acorns because oak. He is an air element because, well, that's where lightning is.
I guess, man. You can't argue with that sort of logic, guys.
He's also associated with hammers, iron, obviously, lightning, steel, Thursdays, and so specifically with the rune Thurisaz.
Yeah, Thurisaz.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thor's got a lot of interesting characteristics. It's more than just like swing, hammer, smush giant. Although he did swing a lot of hammers and smush a lot of giants. Let me tell you what, this guy.
He sure did.
Just giant murderer.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Just circling back around to it. I forgot to interrupt you during the spell, but so in the Thor protection spell, you do this thing where you say Thor, protector of Midgard. I have found that, and it also sounds very cool when you add a bunch of their other titles in.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of worship. Yeah. So it's like Thor, protector of Midgard, wielder of the Warhammer Mjolnir,
defender of Asgard.
Yeah, exactly. You get them all in there. It sounds cool.
Yeah. Do the Daenerys Stormborn thing and add titles, and this really can really apply to any deity.
Oh, this applies to everything.
You're working with.
Yeah. I specifically do this with the Norse gods. I like to give them like 3 titles. That's like my golden number there. It's like give them like 3 good titles based on like the particular aspect. And this is the thing, right? Because they have these titles, because they're known for this thing, right? If you're making a Thor spell directed towards fertility, right? You can call them out, Thor, protector of Midgard, right? God of fertility, blah 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 blah. That's the benefit of having all these bonus titles. I would like to call them. Is that you can sort of direct that particular Thor energy or that particularly focused deity energy in the direction that you want it by using that title shift in there.
I also think that having the titles not only sounds cool, but and can help direct your magic, but I think that it also serves as a very nice form of flattery. It's sort of like a spoken word offering there.
You're like, hey, awesome, cool guy, McRad ass, what's going on, homie? This dope jacket. I'm gonna need you to come over here for a second.
Yeah, I mean, right? if you think
you're buttering them up,
that,
man. I mean, it's like I know it's a moment of reality there, but that's definitely what you're doing.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom would always make jam and give it to me to give to my teachers, in hopes that my teachers would be nice to me that year. And it's that sort of thing. Like you're bringing somebody an offering, they're probably gonna help you out.
They're gonna be like a little bit nicer.
It did not work with my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Cicada. You were mean.
I mean, or she was just bad at school.
She was mean to me very specifically. I remember you, Miss Cicada, and your T-shirts with the necklaces sewn on.
I don't remember any any teachers that far back.
Oh yeah,
I don't.
That's how mean she was. I'm older than you by several thousand years.
Yeah, that's just not how that works.
I still remember my second grade teacher.
That's just not how that works for me.
Anyways,
any bloody who.
This has been a deep dive into Thor. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah, so don't forget to like this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe.
If you're listening on a other podcast channel, thank you very much for listening to us there. Be sure to subscribe to us there and leave us a review. It's how other people help find us as well.
Yeah, definitely. Get us out there. If you would like to follow us on social media and talk to us on social media, you can always reach out if you have questions, comments, concerns, or corrections. I'm at Jive everywhere.
Yep. And I am at Goddess Jules. Sometimes there's 2 S's everywhere, but you can find all of our links on nerdjive.com.
Yeah, you just go to nerdjive.com. Yep. That's where all that is. And hit us up on YouTube. Just go to the podcast video, because there's a video on YouTube for the podcast, and just comment below there. Just, hey, what's up? Like, this or whatever your opinion is or what have you, want to hang out. If you want to support more stuff like this and you want to join our little coven of sharing information and intellect and having fun times and sharing memes and trying to spread that, hit us up on Patreon.
Which you can also find the link to on nerdjive.com.
Yeah, everything's Nerdjive. Everything Nerdjive is me. That's me. Just hit me up, man. What's up?
And stay tuned for the next episode, which will be on Beltane, my personal favorite Sabbath.
Yeah, Beltane gets cray-cray.
Beltane gets crazy.
Yeah.
It's my birthday season. Let's go.
Yeah, she's one of those birthday people, guys. It's totally okay, I guess. Yeah, I'm not at all one of those people.
I have used the phrase birthday month and birthday week a few more times than I would like to admit to. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I would rather not have a birthday. And it has nothing to do with age. It's just I don't care. That's it.
So look forward to that one. That'll be a particularly fun episode, and it'll be coming out just before Beltane, so you'll be able to incorporate any of those ideas and practices into your Beltane ceremonies if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah. Either way, I've been John Norgrove. I don't know if I've said this already. This has been Julie Norgrove. This has been the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. There, she almost messed that one up, guys. She saved it. Don't worry. This has been the Horn and Cauldron podcast. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Stay magical, y'all.
Stay magical.